Hello and welcome to Goblin TV. In today's video we're going to be painting up an Ultramarine Repulsor Executioner from start to finish. In this tutorial you'll follow along with the Ultramarine Repulsor Executioner, and hopefully you'll be able to pick up some tips and tricks along the way, and you'll be able to paint up your Repulsor in exactly the same format and way that I have in this video. This is going to be a very long tutorial, about 45 minutes long, so go get comfortable, grab yourselves a nice hot drink or maybe an ice cold beer, and we'll get started with the tutorial. We start off by priming the miniature in Owlclad 2's Lacquer Primer Grey. It's very important to note that Owlclad primers are very harmful if inhaled. You need to make sure that you're wearing a respirator and you're very well ventilated. Also, these are what's known as hot liquids. What that means is that if you have an airbrush with rubber seals, it will get damaged by the lacquer paint, so please make sure you have a good quality airbrush with PTFE solvent proof seals. Here I'm priming at 20 psi, about 3 to 4 inches away from the model, and I'm just getting a nice even smooth coverage. You may notice that I constantly keep the airbrush moving. This is so I don't build up too much paint in any one area and leave to drip marks or runs on the vehicle. Now we're going to do a technique called pre-shading. We're going to use Vallejo Game Air Black, and what we're going to do is follow along all the panel lines on the vehicle. So we're going to do it on the turret, the doors, and also the main bulk of the vehicle itself. Don't worry if you're new to airbrushing and you make a little mess of the pre-shading stage. What I mean by that is if you don't get smooth straight lines, when we actually go down to lay our base layer of paint, we can cover up as little or as much as the pre-shading as we want. So if you make mistakes, don't worry, we'll be able to fix that later on when we paint the base layer. Now we're going to create some pre-highlights. What I'm using is Vallejo Game Air White, but you can use any white for this particular task. So I'm just going around all the center of the panels or areas on the vehicle where I think it would look cool to have an extreme highlight. Now I'm going to be adding 4012 Auto Air Colors Reducer, or you could call it a paint thinner. We're going to be using Vallejo Game Air Ultramarine Blue and the thinner, or the reducer, whichever you're happiest saying, and we're going to apply about 1 drop of thinner to every 3 drops of paint. This is so we can actually lay down the paint thinner than normal, and we can control how much of that pre-shading shows through. The more paint we place down, the less you'll actually see of the pre-shading, and obviously the less paint we put down, the more pre-shading will show through. The great thing about our hobby, guys, is no matter how long you've been painting, you'll come to a stage where you'll do something on a vehicle and you won't be happy with the results. Well, I really don't like the Vallejo Game Air Ultramarine Blue colour. It looks a bit chalky and I just really don't like it. So I've decided that I'm going to paint over the Ultramarine Blue with another blue colour, and we're going to at first lay down some really strong shadows using Vallejo Game Air Imperial Blue. As you can see, I'm laying down the shadows in areas where I think they'd naturally form, and also areas that I think would just look cool. Now we're going to add the blue colour that I think looks way better than Ultramarine blue, which is Vallejo Game Air Magic Blue. As you can see, as I'm adding it to the central panel of this door, it really pops this colour and looks absolutely lovely. I go around all the central panels of the tank and I hit it with the Vallejo Game Air Magic Blue. Now we're going to create some strips of yellow down the doors using Games Workshop's Avalon Sunset. This is a standard base paint, so you will need to thin it down with water or airbrush thinner, and once thinned it sprays beautifully out of the airbrush. And as you can see, I've used some Tamiya masking tape here. Please use Tamiya masking tape, which is a special hobby tape and not regular household masking tape, as it's not designed to work well with plastics and it will pull your paint up. But here I'm just spraying the Avalon Sunset in between those strips of Tamiya masking tape, and we're going to be left with some lovely looking strips of yellow. Now we're going to spray Vallejo metal varnish, gloss varnish, over the entirety of the vehicle. So that's the doors, the turret and the main bulk of the vehicle. There's two reasons that we're laying down a gloss varnish. The first reason is we want to protect all of that lovely paintwork that we've just done with a very tough gloss varnish. The second reason is we want to place down some decals, and also we want to lay down a nice pin wash, and a gloss varnish is the perfect surface to do these two things on. Now we're going to be using some odourless thinner and some Ammo by Miggs black wash. It's very important to note that these are enamel products and they're not acrylic. They work actually better than acrylics for washes, as you're able to remove stains with the odourless thinner about 10 to 15 minutes after the actual black wash has dried. Once acrylic wash is dried, you cannot remove them, or you can't stump the stains away. After applying the wash in all of the panel lines of the vehicle's turret, main body and the doors, we're now going to seal it in with Vallejo premium colour matte varnish. This is a really thin varnish and sprays beautifully out the airbrush. I highly recommend this varnish. As you can see, it's getting rid of that very garish looking gloss varnish, and it's making those decals look like they've been painted on. We're going to create some subtle chips and dinks onto the vehicle using Vallejo Game Air Charred Brown. I use a bit of foam that you normally get in miniature blister packs, and as you can see, I'm adding just tiny amounts of little chips to the vehicle. Now we're going to dry brush the vehicle, and we're going to be using Vallejo Game Air Wolf Grey. The reason we dry brush is to catch all the extreme edges of the vehicle, which will make those panels look a lot sharper and also make them pop more and really make the vehicle come alive. It's important to know whilst dry brushing is you dip your flat headed brush, or I've got a very large round headed brush here from Artist Opus, and you remove almost all of the paint on some paper towel, and then you very lightly brush backwards and forwards on the vehicle to catch all the edges. Now we're going to create some streaking rust effects using MIG by Ammo's streaking rust effects. Here you'll see that I'm just adding tiny amounts of rust to the vehicle in tiny little dots. What we'll do once the dots have started to dry, we'll come in with some odorless thinner, and then we'll pull down from the top of the streak or the dot, and we'll start making streaks. It's important to note that the brush is not wet with odorless thinner, it's damp, so I remove most of the odorless thinner from the bristles of the brush, and then with a damp brush I just pull down from the top of those dots and we create our streaks. Now we're going to use some masking putty. You can use masking tape here, but I thought it'd be easier and quicker to use masking putty for this task. What I'm doing is masking all around the area of the turret where the blue is, because we're going to start airbrushing a red colour. We're going to airbrush for the base coat some German red brown from Vallejo primer range. Now we're going to create some highlights using Vallejo Model Air Ferrari Red. All of the metallics on the vehicle get painted with Vallejo Metal Colour Gunmetal Grey. This is a fantastic paint and works beautifully in the airbrush and for brush painting as well. As you can see, it gives pretty much one coat coverage as we're painting around the vehicle. Now we're going to paint the base. We're going to use Vallejo Game Air Earth to base coat the base. Army Painter's strong tone is going to be airbrushed onto the base to create some shading. Xandri dust is going to be dry brushed on the base. The metallics that were painted in gunmetal grey from Vallejo metal colour range is going to be dry brush using Vallejo Game Air Silver. As before I mentioned, it's very important that you remove most of the paint off the bristles of the brush on some paper towel, and then you lightly brush backwards and forwards with a flat-headed brush, and this will give you some really nice contrast between the dark metallics and the hard edge, or not the hard edge highlighted, the dry brushed edges. Congratulations to making it to the end of the tutorial, guys, and as an extra special bonus, this very painted tank by myself will be given away on this video. All you have to do is place a comment down below in the comments field, and Goblin TV will pick a random winner in the next month, and they will win this lovely painted Ultramarine Repulsor Executioner. Well, I hope you liked this tutorial on Goblin TV, guys, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, and also subscribe and hit the bell symbol to make sure you get notified of future up and coming videos. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and we'll catch you in the next one.